You may not believe me, but he was kicked out of the guild. He was once humanity's strongest mage, but now, stripped of title and glory, he wanders alone until he finds her, a wounded, broken cat girl sold as a slave. He gives her freedom, she gives him purpose. Now, two outcasts walk a new path together for a future they'll build on their own terms. Can a broken mage and a rescued soul carve out a life worth living? Let's find out. The story begins with the protagonist, the mage Rude, in zero gravity looking at a demon, and then a cat on his shoulder said that she understood what he meant. The spell is quite simple. The question is whether he can use it. The cat knows that he is good at it. It's time to show his skills. Mage, he must be careful, otherwise they will all be finished. The girl behind him said, "The master will never allow this. He will definitely succeed." And then the mage Rude put his hands forward and shouted, "Nullify." Shortly before this, he entered the room, but Boss Tran called him and shouted, "Mage Rude, he is excluded from their squad." The protagonist asked, "Huh? What?" Tran laughed and asked, "Doesn't he get it?" After all, he said that he was banishing him. He should get out. They don't need him anymore. Rude asked, "What? Why?" So suddenly, Sufi laughed and sighed and said, "Master Tran, how cruel he is." And then Mei asked him, "Is he surprised? Didn't expect to be kicked out? Didn't he really understand anything?" Then Shin said that she didn't mind, but he, Rude, was really useless. She felt sorry for him. And then the boss laughed and asked, "Did you get it now?" This was a joint decision, and then Rude stood sadly and thought that 5 years had passed since Tron created the Golden Rose Squad. The boss took him from the orphanage. Since that day, the protagonist served the squad and tried to be useful. Then Tron laughed again and asked, "Does he really not get it? It's all because he is useless." The boss began to reason. Does he understand how things are going for them? He and Sufi mainly fight in the vanguard. Mei's magic is long-range support and Shin protects from the undead and sometimes heals them. The protagonist said, of course he understood everything. Then he thought, he was the one who came up with this tactic. Tran asked, "What about him? He can't fight in the vanguard, or use offensive magic either. He just toils away in the rear, doing useless support magic." The boss saw Mei and Shin laughing and continued to ask, what would the protagonist do with his uselessness? What was the point of his presence? Rude said that of course he wasn't very good at it, but without his help it wouldn't have happened. Tron interrupted him and said that he was a damn idiot. He was a burden now, anyone could carry luggage and show the way. The protagonist thought that wasn't what he meant by help, and said that he agreed he wasn't an expert in support magic. But someone had to fill that role, right? The upcoming dungeons would require strategy like never before, and they needed someone to guide them from the rear. And then everyone laughed, and the boss asked, "Is he sure? They are S rank now. What kind of strategies are these? They can easily take out an A rank dungeon." Tron doesn't even know how effective the protagonist is. After all, the boss can fight without auxiliary magic. Then Mei said that Master Tran was right, and she continued that of course, there are questions about her safety, but she is confident in her team. Then she began to tell Shin that she is protected by God. The protagonist, perplexed, began to tell them to wait and not to get carried away. After all, his auxiliary magic is now always active, so... Before Rude could finish speaking, Tron interrupted him with his shout, that they don't need him, that he is a pathetic parasitic fool. In addition, the boss has already found a replacement for the protagonist. They have a contract from the next dungeon attack for the next battles. Puff is a specialist and above the level of the protagonist. MC thought that he had never heard of such a thing. Heading towards the exit, Tran continued talking and asked the protagonist if he finally understood that he is not worthy of being in the S-rank squad. Useless people get unfastened, that goes without saying. Someone from the group shouted for Tran to stop. Sitting on his knees, Rude thought that he did not remember doing anything that would make the boss hate the protagonist. Even if so, there must be a reason. Rude then turned his head towards the boss and began to tell him to wait, because the boss will need his magic, and Rude will prove it in the next adventure. After all, he can do more than just help. The protagonist thought that, for the sake of the squad, he learned different types of magic. There's a lot of magic that he has not used yet. Of course, Tron treated him like a slave, and Rude knows perfectly well that he does not deserve to be with him, but this squad is the only place he ever belonged to. Tran, who gave him a place, is like the light, he is like the sun. Tran turned his head to the protagonist and said that he said everything. Rude was a pain in the ass. Turning back, Tran told his team that they were going to a restaurant because they had a reservation there. Mei began to say that she would take care of the team's tactics and would succeed in it even more. Shin, turning her back to the protagonist, said that he was a poor thing and would remember their kindness until the end of his days. Suddenly, Tran turned to the protagonist and added that he almost forgot to say that he had cancelled his adventurer registration. Rude was sad and said that he hoped Tran would regret it. Tran laughed happily and walked towards the exit, shouting that he definitely would not regret it. Rude, sitting on the floor in a lonely room, shed a tear and said that he was still grateful to the boss. Then Rudd, opening the door to one of the rooms, was surprised and said, "What? It can't be. Just don't tell him that they sold everything." Suddenly the mistress appears behind him and says, "Oh, Rude. Welcome back." Then the mistress asks him if they are in a hurry. Rude turns to the mistress and asks what. The mistress tells him he is going on an adventure, isn't he? She will miss him. He was one of the few worthy adventurers in town. She says she has collected his things in the hall. Then she asks for his things. Is that all? Rude says yes. Then he turns around and walks away. He starts to think that maybe he should go. Thoughts start to attack him. Well, okay. He doesn't even want to remember it. It's better for the others to forget too. He shouts for him to pull himself together. After a while, he stands at the shop and says he is going, after which he looks at his hand and thinks, maybe he should deactivate this too? This is the last magic item that was never sold because he always had it. A support tool that helped the boss and the rest of the party. Rude said that he remembered those days. When they were a D-rank squad, they were attacked by a group of bandits at night. The protagonist managed to find them with his magic, and only thanks to this, they survived. Since then, he constantly activates auxiliary magic to strengthen. This item was created to help with high-level magic, and then Rude used magic to destroy this bracelet. He shouted release. Suddenly, the crystals in the bracelet began to split and he said, Sufi, Mei, Shin, Tran, this time we really say goodbye. The protagonist felt something was wrong and thought that maybe it was because of the magical imbalance in his body. Because 5 years have passed since he felt this, the protagonist said, huh? What? His body became so light and his thoughts so clear. He did not suspect how much magic flowed out of him, how wonderful he feels. Taking his things in his hand, he thought that it was time for him to go. After which, he glanced at the sky and said that he didn't know the night sky was so beautiful. After all he did was study magic in his room. Rude thought that he wouldn't have to do that anymore. He didn't have to lock himself in a dark room, and he didn't have to buy books on magic with his own money. He could use most of the techniques, and he didn't have to go with a squad. Joyfully shouting, this is exactly what he was waiting for. He walked along the night street lit by lampposts, and thought that from now on, he would live as he wanted, go where he wanted, buy and eat what he wanted, and earn money doing what he wanted, doing what he liked. But first, he would leave the city. And this was not the boss's decision, but his choice. He would become an adventurer again. At that time, in the restaurant of Dari Mansura, someone from the Tron squad shouted, let's shutter, and they clinked glasses. Then the new team member, sitting on a chair holding a glass in her hands, began to say that it was nice to meet her. Her name is Puff. She is an auxiliary mage who joins the S-ranked Golden Rose squad. She can't believe that they rented a restaurant to welcome her. Thank you very much. As an assistant specialist, she has learned to recognize other people's fighting ability. She calls it aura, but their group is S-ranked. Then Puff thought that she had never seen such an aura. I wonder if she can last among such high-ranked people? To be honest, she is not sure if she can handle these high-ranked people, but someone from the team said that they are counting on Puff tomorrow. Puff told them that she will do her best. Suddenly, someone said, be careful not to choke, and everyone fell asleep. After a while, everyone woke up, and Puff looked at the others, and she thought that their aura was gone. Just a moment ago, they had the aura of S-ranked adventurers. Now they look like A-rank or even B-rank adventurers. So they are just ordinary adventurers? No, that can't be. No matter how much support magic you use, it's impossible to raise your abilities to S-rank. Moreover, it's completely impossible to cast it on all 4 of them. The only person who could wield such magic would be someone with divine powers. Rude walks across the field and says that it's not a bad idea to travel alone at night using light magic. It's a good thing high air was in the east because it would take him about a month to get to the Empire. There are 3 main territories on this huge continent of Bizion. The Roland Empire, the territory he's heading to, the Demon Realm, the most dangerous place, the High Air Kingdom, the territory where he lived. The real areas of human activity are High Air and the Empire, known as the Human Kingdoms. The only problem is food. Opening his bag, he found that he had a couple of pieces of something hard. He thought that if he stretched it out over 3 days, it should be enough. He lit a fire and sat down next to it. And he thought that according to the map he remembered, a little further to the southeast there should be a small forest. Then he said that it would be possible to get meat or fish there. The protagonist became interested. Are Tran and the others okay? He had already done everything he could, although he should stop thinking about them. Suddenly he heard screams. Help! He ran and used the boost, wind acceleration. He smelled blood. Rudd thought it was too late. One of the bandits turned to him and asked, who the hell is he? Rudd thought they were bandits, and he wondered, did they attack the wagons? All the guards were dead. Suddenly one of the bandits said to call him. And then Rudd thought again, damned bandits, taking lives with impunity just to line their own pockets. Then Rude shouted, that's why he shows no mercy. MC started using magic, magnetization, storm-driven fixation magic, Windblade. The bandits were confused and asked what was that? Electricity? One of them laughed and said, what kind of wind was that? Then Rude used synthesis magic, Thunder Windblade in the form of a tornado. The bandits screamed and ran away. The protagonist thought, even if this was just the first spell. Then he said that it was quite powerful. For the first time, he was able to use some of the offensive magic he had read about. Walking up to the carriage, he asked, at least they were safe now? There must be survivors somewhere? Looking into the carriage, he heard someone's voice and saw people there. Rudd thought they were slaves and it was a slave trader's cart. He then said that everything was fine now, he had dealt with all the bandits. In response, he heard only sounds and thought that everything did not look good. The other slaves were already dead. She would bleed to death if nothing was done. Rudd said relax, he would help her. He thought that it had been a long time since he had used restorative magic. Let's see what can be done. Rudd began to use magic, physical regeneration, clairvoyance. The protagonist saw that she had nothing but problems. Even her internal organs were damaged. Rudd thought that these were not fresh wounds. She has been a slave for a very long time and has earned many problems. Then it is necessary to detoxify and restore her strength. The only thing at hand was spilled water. You can clean her by dousing her with steam, wash everything off at once. And her clothes are in tatters, you should try to fix them with magic. Should it work? A confused girl stood before him, but she was already clean and beautiful. Rudd thought that she was some kind of wolf. The slave began to ask what happened to her body. Not only did the wounds heal, but the whole body was restored. The protagonist said, phew, he hasn't used magic for a long time, so he's tired. He's not sure if he optimized his powers enough. The slave thanked him. In response, Rude said that everything was fine. He tried for himself too. The protagonist approached her and saw a mark on her chest. He was surprised. He had never seen one like that. Only a brand with a slave contract. He raised his hand, and Sue suddenly screamed. The protagonist was shocked and asked her what was wrong. Sue apologized to him and said that she thought he would hit her. She was very scared. She asked him not to hit her. She would be a good girl. She would listen to him and would not even think of running away. Rude thought that she had an injury. A raised hand is a trigger. His magic can heal physical wounds, but not mental ones. And since that's the case, the protagonist hugged her sharply and said that everything was fine, he wouldn't hurt her. Sue shed a tear and asked, really? No more beatings? Rude said, of course, everything was fine. Sue thought that's what warmth was like. She calmed down and she was sorry that she embarrassed him. The protagonist said that everything was fine, but what happened? Sue began to tell that suddenly a lot of people attacked them. And then they saw them and said that this was not what they were told, and began to kill them. Rude said, information? And he thought that they had some kind of goal. But suddenly running into bandits, isn't it too strange? Sue thanks him again and asks what his name is. He turns his head to her and says, Rude. The girl tells him, Mr. Rude. And my name is Sue. Rude said, it's nice to meet you. Let's move, okay? If we stay here, the bandits might come again. This carriage can be rebuilt with restoration magic, so let's borrow it. With earth magic, they can build a grave. At the very least, they should bury those who were killed. If they don't, they will be gnawed by wild dogs. Their fate is already terrible. They don't have much time, so it will be a mass grave. It's the least he can do. They don't have horses, but instead, we can power it with his magic. He can use wind magic, tornadoes to make the wheels turn. And then Sue grabs his hand and asks him if he will be her master. Rude asks, what? And he thought, him? Master? Sue said that she is asking him to be her master. She wants MC to let her be his slave. The protagonist thought, how can a man refuse such a beautiful girl who looks at him like that? But he was originally treated as a slave. He came to the orphanage as an abandoned child. Then Tron picked him up. His memories of being in the orphanage are erased, so he doesn't remember where the orphanage is or what he did there. They probably wanted to make sure he wouldn't escape from under the noses of the buyers. No matter how hard it would be in the place he would end up in, there would be nowhere to run. However, the suffering didn't go away. To hell with slavery. Such feelings never disappear without a trace. Sue apologized and asked why he didn't like her. She was weak, useless, and generally looked disgusting. Rude said, that's not true, and gave her a mirror. Sue looked at it and was shocked. She asked, is this her? Where did she get those clothes? Do they suit her? The protagonist said, yes, very beautiful. And he thought that she had some mysterious beauty. If it weren't for the handcuffs on her hands, no one would have thought that she was a slave. Her shy, fussy look is also charming. Or maybe he has a soft spot for beast girls? This is his first time interacting with a beast girl. He's never really interacted with regular girls either. But what's with this desire to protect her? Sue asked him once again, will Master Rude be her master? MC thought, how hard is it to say no? But he has to refuse. He started saying that he likes his freedom. He can't take responsibility for someone else's life right now. so he wants them both to live freely. Besides, the Sue he knows now is not someone's slave. She can live like a regular girl. Sue said that she understood. She would become Master's slave of her own free will. Rude shouted out in surprise, "No, that's not what he meant." Sue said that she was very happy to meet him. The protagonist thought, "Master, oh well." Then he told her to take care of him. They rode in a carriage through a dark forest. Rudd thought that the carts could be used as tents. It was good that they had a place to sleep. They stopped and Rudd said, "Let's eat first." He asked her what she liked better, meat or fish. Sue said that she had only eaten bread and milk. Rudd thought that was sad. He suggested that she try both. Sue said, "Okay, she will come too. She is a slave, so she will help." The protagonist thought, does she think he will be angry if she does not help? He told her that she can come with him, but he will not allow her to help. He thought that the shackles that bind Sue's hands are also a sign of slavery. A slave contract cannot be terminated by a third party, even if the slave trader dies. Sue's slave contract was not terminated. They mean that Sue has already been sold. This form of sale is usually common among nobles. If they find out that he terminated it, it will be considered a crime. But he decided that he would live the way he wanted, and he shouted, "Break the contract formula of dark magic. This is trying to destroy him. It's a very strong contract, most likely not a single person but a group of people. No ordinary mage could break it except him." Well, he was a mage in the S-rank group, did everything from disarming traps to lifting the curse in each dungeon. He made new routes for his friends and everything, so he's good at it, and he can lift them. Sue said, "Unbelievable." The merchant said that she would never lift them. The protagonist said, "Don't worry about it. Since she was going to help him, she should be able to use her hands." Not only did he lift the shackles, but he also healed her illnesses and wounds. She was told that they were incurable like curses. Even the priests gave up. She was abandoned in the village. The protagonist suddenly began to pet her head. Sue said, "How nice." He gave her nice clothes and saved her from bandits. He is her benefactor. Rude replied that he was just a mage. She told him in return that he was too amazing, so much so that he seemed unreal. That's why she wanted him to make her his. She wanted to belong to him in body and soul. She begged him to be her true master. He asked, "Is she serious?" They would need to put shackles on her, exchange blood, mix their magic, and then carve a seal of their contract that would mean that she would swear to obey him forever. He knew how to do it, but he didn't want Sue to be a slave. He apologized and said that he couldn't do that. She looked down sadly and said, "That's how." In response to this, he pulled her closer and said that he would do this instead. Then he lifted her bangs from her face and kissed her forehead. She looked at him sheepishly, and he pulled away and smiled, thinking that the beastmen had their own culture. As far as he knows, a forehead kiss is some kind of proof of friendship. He asked, "What's wrong?" He thought that such a relationship was much better than slavery. She didn't like it. She waved her hands and shouted that it was not so. Everything was fine. Then she put her hands on her reddened cheeks and asked why raise her rank so high. He thought in surprise. Rank? Of course, a friend is higher in rank than a slave, right? She awkwardly asked if she could do the same. He looked at her embarrassed face and asked, "What's wrong? Is she embarrassed?" Then he knelt down and lifted his bangs and said, "Okay." She leaned towards him and, pulling his face, kissed him on the lips. She said that even if it was part of the culture to kiss each other. Then she pulled away and laughed awkwardly. She said that this was her answer. He, perplexed, thought, "What? This is not a forehead kiss." Sue told him to take care of her, her master. The protagonist thought that he had read a lot of books but still didn't know much about what was going on. For example, that each race of beastmen had their own culture. For Sue's race, kisses between boys and girls had different meanings. Kissing on the forehead meant grudging respect. Likewise, kissing between girls and boys carried a reciprocal message. The message of Sue's kiss was that in the end, she would give him everything. Sue sat and thought that the master was too bold. It was her first kiss. Team Golden Rose arrived at the A-rank dungeon, the cursed lair of a ferocious dragon. They were all out of shape. The boss said that he drank too much yesterday. Sufi agreed with him. May's magic didn't obey her at all, she was exhausted. And Shin said that she couldn't believe that she had a hangover from such a small thing. Tron said they couldn't stand there forever. It was time to take on the dungeon. Everyone agreed with him, except Puff. Anne asked what was wrong. Was she hungover too? She said no, she was fine, it was something else. She suggested they not go today. Tran asked what she was talking about. Puff told him she thought it was best not to go to the dungeon today. Tran stood there, confused. What did that mean? Damn, she sounded just like that brat he had just banished. He told her not to piss him off. Puff said she was an assistant, so she knew what she was talking about. She could see their power level. Called it an aura. Tran asked, "Oh wow, a combat power rating? Great, what does that mean?" Puff said she was scared. They weren't in the best shape. Honestly, their combat power had dropped significantly. She would say they were around B rank. Tran laughed and asked where she learned to joke like that. Sufi started laughing too and said that she was making fun of her overly serious face. Mei said that they couldn't be that weak because of a hangover. Shin agreed and said that she seemed to be unable to measure the aura. Puff shouted that she knew that too. It was usually impossible. Yesterday, when she first saw them, everyone had an incredibly strong aura. She had never seen such a strong aura in the guild. Tran said that if there was a B rank among them, it was that useless bastard. Of course they were S rank. Puff shouted again that this was not the case. If they took on this dungeon like this, there would definitely be casualties. The boss thought that if Puff, an expert in helping assholes, was saying that, it meant that he was in worse shape than ever. In his current state, he might not be able to fight on his own. Normal level. Tran yelled that they couldn't not go in. If they put it off until another day, everything would go to hell. Someone from the team yelled that they had to do it today. Otherwise, they wouldn't meet the kingdom's deadline. Tran said that this wasn't just a request. This was a test of their skills. So get ready. Failing because of a hangover is not an option for S rank. Everyone agreed with him, but Puff said that they should wait. This is not their level. Tran said that they didn't have time to mess with her. What a pain in the ass. He would have to give her a talk later, so she wouldn't mention it again. A nightly briefing in his room would solve the problem. He began to imagine her standing in her shirt, apologizing to him for what she said during the day. He told her, "You'll learn everything in time." Puff asked Tran to punish her. He is sure that it will be like this. Then he said that she will quickly fall in love with him, and shouted, "Go! Let's end this." Sometime later, Rude, while restoring the carriage, reminisced and told Sue about the attack on the dungeon with their team. Sufi kicked and shouted, "Get it!" Mei used Fireball. Shin used the spell Transform into Undead. Rude told the boss that it was his turn. Tran said, "Shut up," and used Cross Strike. The protagonists said that they were the best. Sue asked, "What? Kicked out? But why? Master, you are so strong. It's unbelievable." MC asked where she learned to comfort. He is not good enough, but the squad he was in was excellent. The ranks start from the lowest E, and technically there are up to SSS. But until now, there was only one such SSS rank squad. These are the legendary heroes of the past who defeated the Demon Lord. There are only 3 SS ranked squads today. And even at S rank, there have only been 7 certified parties. At least that's how few there are in high air. It's a prestigious rank that's only given to a select few. Sue said it wasn't fair. He was so great. She didn't know anyone as strong, amazing, and kind as him. It wasn't fair to say he wasn't good enough. They were the bad ones. Rude thought it was the first time someone was mad at him. It was a strange feeling, but it made him happy. Well, it's S rank. They're all a little stronger than him. They might be in an S rank dungeon right now. Sue said that he had her now, so he didn't have to think about them. The protagonist thanked Sue. Still, he felt like he overdid it a bit. Well, here they were, in Chenxi City, Roland Empire. He wants to become an adventurer again, but then Sue asked, "Do you want to go on an adventure again?" Rude answered, "Yes, but he doesn't know if he can." Sue said that she is sure he can. He will become the best adventurer. The protagonist thought, Sue always supports him, even though it is not magic, but it makes him stronger. Perhaps she is even more talented at helping than he is. He will do it on his own, again, among the S ranks. After some time, Tran's team got lost in a cave. Tran asks Mei, is she sure this is the right way? He feels like they have been here before. Mei said, it must be the right way. Tran told her not to say they are lost. They have to clear this dungeon today. Mei said she knows, but it is so dark. Can't you light the way a little? Shin said if she uses too much magic, but Sufi interrupts her and says that they are whining here. Don't drag Master Tran along with you. Incompetence. Someone from the team said that Sufi should also contribute to the victory. She is too slow. Sufi asked, what? She was just out of shape, right, Master Tran? The boss laughed and said that he was not in the best shape either. Not sure he can do anything about it, but they should try. Sufi said it right, so Mei, hurry up and show us the way. But let's not waste time on roads full of monsters. Mei said she was sure this was the right road. Someone from the team said they were having a bad day. Puff walked and thought. Her name was Puff. She was supposed to be the new auxiliary mage of the S-rank squad. But what does she see? No coordination, no distribution of roles, no clear plan. More like a hastily put together squad of newbies. They are currently on the 4th level out of 13. The deeper they go into the dungeon, the more powerful the magic becomes and the higher the level of the monsters. Can't get rid of the uneasy feeling. The main monsters that have appeared so far have been goblin zombies. In terms of strength, they are on the lower rung of B rank. If the mage is S rank, he should be able to deal with them with ease. Tran shouted that he does not need help, and added that Puff should watch what an S rank fight is like. Puff thought Master Tran could afford to be complacent. He seemed relaxed while fighting an unequal battle against 2 goblin zombies. But even one extra goblin in the middle of the battle was enough to cause confusion. It was only with Mei's sorcery that he was able to defeat him. The magic was powerful enough, but it was hard to believe that it was her specialty. Her fireball bore no resemblance to the bone-crushing firepower that was attributed to her. Her eyes had not deceived her. The true strength of these people was only B rank. I wonder how they got to S rank? But that was not the important thing right now. If they did not retreat while the danger level was low, they would undoubtedly be wiped off the face of the earth. Rude and Sue were walking around the city. They came to a large building. The protagonist said, "So this is Roland's Adventurers Guild." Rude thought that the city was a guild. Everything around looked almost like high air. He found it strange. Suddenly, a woman in a bunny costume approached them and said, "Welcome to Bunnybo, the Adventurers Guild." She asked how she could help them. Rude said that he would like to register as a new adventurer. Enon told him that she would take care of his registration. She, Enon, introduced herself as the secretary of the guild. The protagonist said that it was nice to meet him. His name was Rude. She asked Sue if the young lady would like to register with them. She said that she was her master's slave, so there was no need to register. There was a group of people sitting at the table. One of them asked, "Come on, such a little one is a slave and a rare animal." Another said, "She is cute." The third said, "Damn, he is so jealous, it's unfair." Rude thought that they all got it wrong. Enan asked that he was the only one registering. MC started to worry about his future. Enan said, "Well then, Mr. Rude, let's get everything ready for the registrations. First of all, please fill in all the necessary information." The protagonist thought, first name and age, how exciting. Suddenly, someone came up from behind and asked, "Hey girl, lost? This is no place for such little girls." Rude turned his head and looked at him, then replied that he was a guy. The man apologized and said that he was so skinny and that he was easy to confuse. If you look closely, he was quite cute. He could find him a better job than this. The protagonist told him to mind his own business and asked him to be quiet. The man suddenly pulled his hand towards the main character and took the paper away, then said, "What an idiot. Adventures are a world of real men. There is no place for skinny weaklings like him. How irritating it is to see such a good-for-nothing fool." Sue got angry. Rude said that everything is fine and asked to give him the paper he was still writing. The man told him to try to take it away and called him a girl. Adventurers must be strong. The protagonist said that adventurers are more or less the same everywhere. Wherever you go, it's always the same. The man asked, "What did he say?" "He's ugly," and shouted, "Take that," then tried to hit him, but Rude dodged. The protagonist thought that his physical strength, stance, and flow of magical power. He would say that his fighting ability is about B rank. MC said that he would give him one piece of advice so that he would be more selective in choosing an opponent, and punched him right in the stomach. The protagonist thought that even though he was kicked out, he was still a former S-rank squad member. Using physical enhancement, he can deal especially strong attacks. He can handle a B-rank opponent even without a squad. The man asked, "What kind of sudden blow is that? Is he a mage? What did he do to him?" Rude said that he was just a mage. Curses were not under his control. The protagonist remembered that he could actually use a couple. The man, swinging his sword angrily, shouted, "Were you trying to make fun of him?" The protagonist thought that he had gotten back on his feet quickly. If it was due to his endurance, he was probably one of the best B-rankers. The man tried to hit him with a sword, but Rude used a shield. And then the man found himself in a cube. Rude, smiling, looking at him, asked, "What with such an attack level? Probably even if he swings his fists all day, he won't get out, right?" The man angrily hit the cube and shouted, "You fool, let me out quickly." Rude, standing behind the counter, having filled out the form, told him to just shut up for a bit. He would let him go as soon as he finished his business. Then he turned his head towards Sue and asked her if she was scared. Sue said that she was not scared at all. Rude continued filling out the form and thought that now it was only a bit noisy, but at least he was no longer being disturbed. The man was still shouting to be let out. The protagonist thought it was too loud, and he cast a silence spell. Two girls were standing to the side and talking to each other. Bile said that he struck incredibly fast. "You should have seen it. Hit him right in the stomach. The guy is strong." Senpai said that's not all. "He hit him twice, she tells her for sure." Bile asked happily, "Really?" She did not even notice. "Cool, Senpai, she has a keen eye." Senpai said that she could still praise her. The protagonist told Sue that some strange company had gathered there. "Don't look too closely." Sue replied, "Okay." There was a girl standing around the corner, and she thought that there were 3 of them, and with physical effort. Interesting guy. Who is he? I need to take a closer look. Meanwhile, the Golden Rose team was fighting in the dungeon. Tran said that they were the best. Damn, why can't they beat them? At that time, almost the entire team was defeated. After some time, the entire Golden Rose team was resting. Except for Puff, she was sitting under a tree and reading a book. A few hours ago, in the cursed lair of the fierce dragon, level 5, they made a stop in the cave. Sufi suggested taking a short break. Mei agreed and said that she did not want to rush and she needed to check the map. Shin added that she was tired and needed to restore her magic power. Puff then thought that she was sure that they would understand what situation they were in, then suggested retreating. Because if they continue like this, and at that moment Tron interrupts her again and asks her what she is talking about, because they are doing fine. He stretched out with his hands up. Sufi agreed with him and said that they were not halfway there yet. Mei said that the real work would begin next. Shin suggested that she keep a low profile. Puff then thought that they did not understand at all. Where did they get such confidence? Tron asked her if she was that naive, right? Puff said that was not the point. Then the boss interrupted her again, saying that from now on he was lifting the ban on auxiliary magic. He was counting on her, pointing a finger in her direction. Puff stood there in confusion. Sufi told her to keep an eye on them. She even wondered how much she would help them. Mei said that this was where the squad really came into its own, and suggested that they work together as wizards. Shin agreed and added that it was not easy for her to work hard alone. Puff said that was not the point. Then she was surprised at how much these people expected from auxiliary magic. For her, the bar was at the level of the heavenly tower. She asked them to wait and added that her help alone would not help the matter. The boss asked what kind of modesty. Wasn't she a high-level expert? She thought they thought she was being modest. Sufi asked to carry her luggage. Mei asked to carry her map. Shin said she asked for the lights to be brighter earlier. Could she help? Puff wondered if they would make her pour them beer too? Maybe they don't know what auxiliary magic is. Why are they trying to make her carry the luggage and even plot a route? How can she even do both at the same time? Do they really have no idea how difficult auxiliary magic is? Why are there so few mages who use auxiliary magic? Does she really need to explain it? Damn it. There are no words. My brain is boiling. They talked among themselves as they walked. Someone asked that it wouldn't be difficult for her, right? She can increase her productivity with fortification magic in the auxiliary spectrum, right? Someone added that she can also use farsightedness. She is an attack specialist. So please let her try. She had been saving her magic up until now, so she should be fine with lighting and auxiliary powers. Puff wondered what they were talking about. They continued to walk, talking. Didn't Rude do much more? Someone noticed and asked her. Could she do it? He was the one who was originally in charge of the maps, and lighting in non-combat situations was the worker's job. Did she understand that? She shouted for them to wait, and said that she couldn't do so much. And she thought, what does that mean? After all, in adventures, there is no such thing as a worker. They had already talked about him many times. Who is this Rude? The boss said that it was time for them to move on. They did not have time to rest. She was given the map that Rude used. They gave her all the luggage. To ensure visibility, she uses illumination, as well as a torch. Let her think herself capable. Few can even expand their range of abilities. How can you use all three attributes at once, fire, water, and light? And to top it all off, these words made her want to cry. Mei asked why she didn't just use levitation magic to ferry the items she couldn't carry. Puff thought that their demands were too much. She had already explained that she had her limits. Tran pointed out that Rude did it perfectly and didn't complain, and asked the team if that was true. Puff didn't understand who Rude was and how many different types of magic he used, and all of them were extremely difficult to use at the same time. It just didn't fit in her head. Who exactly was he? The savior of the world or something? Or a god who came down from the sky? They were walking through a dark cave. This was the 6th level. The magic power was different from before. Was this really the dungeon known as the Cursed Lair? The ominous atmosphere. This really was the A-rank dungeon. She couldn't get used to the tension she felt when entering a dangerous area. Sufi said that this was a straight line. Puff, they should keep going. They didn't need a map. They could focus on the battle. They had to keep their spirits up. Puff didn't understand. How could they keep their spirits up, even in such a gloomy atmosphere? Tran shouted, "Let's go," and then he turned to Puff and asked if she was still scared. Since they were serious, it would be easy. After a while, they all stood there looking at the huge giant. Tran shouted that it was the zombie goblin king. It was huge. He then added that this might be their chance. Luck was on their side. Puff wasn't sure. Would they really do it? What an amazing train of thought. He really was a genius in some ways. But it wasn't the boss. Since that damned ferocious dragon's lair came out, there definitely was a dragon. That meant it had to be the boss. The king tier boss in the middle of the dungeon is probably the most dangerous A-rank boss. And in the worst case, even an S-rank would have a hard time resisting this. She wondered if they had even forgotten the name of the dungeon, even though the hierarchy was specified in advance. Were they even thinking about anything? Tran shouted that it was time. They would clear this dungeon. Sufi agreed with him, and Mei said that the preparations for the extermination were complete. Shin said that they could provide her with treatment. Puff, standing in one place, did not understand. Were they not afraid of the king at all? She exclaimed that it couldn't be. Then she wondered, were they pretending? All the foolish actions from the past were some kind of test for the S rank. Were they testing her? The reason they fought so poorly against the B rank was because they wanted to see how she would behave. She realized, this is what it means to join an S rank squad. She was still being tested. In other words, fear will lead to defeat. She shouted that she understood everything. She would do her best to become a worthy auxiliary mage. She suddenly remembered the words spoken by the senior adventurer in the guild. She said then that adventurers need more than just combat skills. They need a strong heart that will not waver in front of any formidable enemy. Courage to face danger head-on. She assured that she was an adventurer, a seeker of the unknown, a fighter with difficulties. She would not be scared off by a superior enemy. After all, she was now accompanied by S-rank comrades. Meanwhile, while she was lost in thought, her entire squad was taken out. They were all unconscious. They could not cope with this boss. She stood there and did not understand how this was possible. In an instant, when the monster approached her from behind, she wrapped her comrades in ribbons and used a wall of light. She understood that it would be easy to destroy it, but at least they would gain some time. Looking at the boss, she thought, since it was a zombie, did it have a problem with the light? Suddenly, Tran made a sound. She was glad that they were alive, and encouraged them, shouting that they needed to gather themselves. She opened the vial of liquid, and Shin used healing at that moment. Started to get up on his feet and said in disappointment that he was caught off guard. How disgusting. Seeing the monster approaching them, he reminded them that they were S-rank. They would handle it on their own. It was their duty. Then he grabbed his sword and shouted, "Forward, together." Sufi agreed with him and ran to attack. The battle began. They could not handle it. Tran, whose face was covered in blood, shouted, "Damn monster! How did it survive the blow of his sword?" Sufi screamed in pain. She had never been so badly injured before. Tran shouted for Puff to help them. She turned around and asked what he was talking about. She was doing everything she could to help them. As soon as the battle began, she gave them both a physical boost, but she couldn't support them forever. Mei placed her staff in front of her and said that she would finish the monster. Then she cast a spell, the ashes smoldering in her blood. It must dance and scorch the earth, the flames of ancient times. It must be reborn and become an incinerating inferno. She aimed a ball of hellfire at the monster, and then she laughed and shouted, "It must perish in the flames of darkness." But when she looked at the monster, she was surprised. The monster approached her, throwing her back. Mei sat on the ground with a devastated look, her body shaking. Shin took out a vial and said that she had no choice but to use her trump card. Puff looked at her and was surprised. Holy water? Shin then began to concentrate the energy around herself and cast a spell. Mother Aloth, their protector, with her blessing, she shall grant them strength. Unclean creature, it shall receive the hammer of God. She then directed the energy at the monster and shouted, "Holy light of purification." Puff noticed that it was the loudest scream she had ever heard. It was working, but they had not defeated the monster. She then shouted that it was great, but they needed one more blow. She then looked in surprise at Shin, who sank to the floor and said exhaustedly that she could not do it anymore. Puff was confused. That was all? Suddenly, this huge goblin zombie began to scream, calling for his kin. Puff was surprised. It called for backup? She assumed that the holy water had damaged the monster. It was slowing down. Puff shouted that this was an opportunity to retreat. Tran sat there and madly repeated that he was a hero. Sufi kept screaming that her arm hurt. Shin said that she used too much magic. Puff, angry, shouted, "Damn, why are they so passive?" Then she opened the book and tied her comrades with ribbons using magic, lifted them in the air and ran, pulling them along with her, and the goblin zombies flew after them. Now she realized that according to Tran, the previous one was expelled because he couldn't keep up with the party's strength. But in reality, he left because they were too weak and too attached to him. That's how it was. In her mind, she asked for help from an unknown person. After some time, the strategy report for the A-rank hard dungeon Cursed Lair of the Fierce Dragon was ready. It said that the winning team was 5 members of the kingdom-designated S-rank hero party, Golden Rose. The highest point reached was level 6. Defeated monsters, 1 skeleton, 3 dark bats, 5 goblin zombies, 1 worm carcass. Reason for retreat, defeat, goblin zombie king. Injured 5, no fatalities. Result of cleanup, complete failure. Sometime later, Enon approached the protagonist and apologized for making him wait for so long. Rude replied that he had just finished filling out the form. She agreed and said that she would check it now. Then she said that there was no problem. Then he said that he wanted to check on someone first. Was that okay with her? He isolated him because he was making too much noise, a B-rank fighter. Enon glanced at him and told him her guess. He was their High Ira, a former adventurer who lost his license for some reason. Rude confirmed it. Anon remarked that it was no wonder he was so strong. He asked if she had seen it. The administrator replied that she had been watching. But even when she was surprised, the smile did not leave her face. Always smile, that's the admin's policy. He replied that he could see it. Sue thought she was a great admin. Enan continued that they didn't care what happened in high air. Adventurers were valuable to the Empire, and the more of them, the better. Adventurers of any ability were always welcome. Then she looked him in the eye and added that even in the guilds they didn't accept everyone. They had a selection process. The protagonist was wary, and she raised her index finger and said that she was just joking. He shouldn't worry, they had already registered him. MC noticed that her sense of humor was much stronger than he thought. Can Anon joke too? Then the admin suggested starting the tests. There are two types, an ability test and a competence test. Rude agreed and added that he would try. The admin clenched her fists and said enthusiastically, "That's the spirit." She thought that they could do without tests, but still, these are the rules. So she asked the protagonist if he was good at magic. Rude replied that he was actually a mage, but he also wielded a sword. Then Anon came to the door and told them to come in here. She opened the door and let them in. She said that they would start with an aptitude test. The administrator pointed to a sphere standing on a stand in the center of the room and explained that mages were tested using these crystals. Rude asked if this was a magic crystal. He noticed that it was a magic artifact that reacted to the magical power of those who touched it and emitted different lights. The intensity of the light could be used to determine the amount of magical power. Anon looked at him and asked if he knew anything about this. MC replied that he had only seen it in books and had never seen it in real life. The administrator concluded that in that case, he understood how it worked. If the crystal proves that it has enough magical power and abilities, then it has passed the test. The protagonist replied that he understood. Up until this point, he didn't need to know about elemental abilities. There are some types of magic that he is not good at, so there was no need to test. So he just needed to reproduce it using other available means. So he studied books on magic, and before he knew it, he could use all types. Sometimes he would faint or almost die from a headache, or he would have a nosebleed that would not stop. When the protagonist moved his hand towards the crystal, Enan said that he should just let the magic flow out of it as it was. The crystal will not break. He does not need to worry. He turned to her and asked, "Is that true?" She raised her index finger and confirmed it, adding that the only person who can break this crystal with pure magical power is a great sage who is considered the strongest mage in the world. It would be amazing if the protagonist could break it. He understood that if he thought about it like that, it was certainly encouraging. Since he didn't have to hold back, he would give it his all. He shouted, "Then go for it." Enan and Sue put on their sunglasses, and the protagonist put his hand on the crystal ball. But seeing no reaction, he was surprised. It wasn't glowing? The greatest mage of all time, the great sage Mondor, the hero of High Ira, the great hero, the sword master known as the Holy Sword, Cornelin. Both of them are heroes of the supercontinent era, considered mythical creatures, and are key members of the extremely powerful, the only SSS-ranked squad in history, Götterdämmerung. To the protagonist, it seemed that saying that only this great sage could break it was a big exaggeration. Since the crystal has such a level of durability, he thought that he had nothing to fear. Then he again directed his hand towards the crystal. But there was no reaction again. He was curious about how it would react, so he only sent out a little magic. It seemed that the ball did not react as well as expected. The protagonist did not understand. Was it not enough magic power? Or was the amount of magic power he had not enough to become an adventurer? He then sent magic to the crystal again and decided that this time he would go for broke. The next second, the crystal shattered into many pieces. The administrator, perplexed, looked at the remains of the crystal from different angles. The protagonist was no less surprised than Enan. The protagonist remembered how not long before, she said that he could not worry, the crystal would not break. At this time, Enan made some strange sounds, frowned and broke out in cold sweat, but a smile still shone on her face. He thought that she was a real professional. The protagonist, confused, said that he thought he broke it. He apologized for this. The administrator, perplexed, assumed that the crystal had expired. They have been using this for so long, that's why it broke. The crystal is old, so it's okay. He doesn't have to worry, they have other crystals too. She brought him another magic crystal ball. The protagonist directed magic at it and it broke again. Anon spread her arms out to the sides, tears were already flowing from her eyes. She didn't understand why. Her flawless appearance was crumbling before her eyes. The protagonist then handed her a glass of water. She took a sip, and then gave him a thumbs up and calming down, said that she didn't even know. She had never seen anything like this before. She thanked him for the water and then asked, "Is he a bearer of some special magic?" When the great sage destroyed this in the past, she heard that he was studying intense light like the sun. She then took off her glasses and added that now they measure crystals while covering their eyes with these glasses. The MC then looked at his hand and asked, "Does that mean his suitability is 0? He thought, "So that's how it is. Of course it's possible that this is just the nature of his magic and there's nothing special about it." He was about to protest, but Sue did it instead, shouting angrily that it was unfair. She shouted that the master could use so many different magics. It couldn't be that he had no ability in any of them. It was simply impossible. She was sure, after all, he had broken that crystal. The master had even more magical power than the Great One. Inon looked at the protagonist and was surprised. "Really?" he said, confused, that he was confident in the number of magic tricks he could use and the amount of magic he could do. He had studied magic from all over the world. He thought it would be an exaggeration to say that he was more powerful than the great sage. The administrator put her hand to her cheek and said that at least she knew that he could use magic. Mr. Rude. If you look at it from a technical point of view, it was advanced level magic. Then she raised her index finger and suggested that the crystal had not worked properly because it had cracked. It reacted to even the weakest magic. It was impossible for it not to glow at all. He replied that he understood, and then he folded his arms and closed his eyes. He was sure there was another reason, but since he didn't care, he didn't think it was worth the trouble of explaining. The most offensive thing was to misjudge one's abilities. Anon said that she knew he could use high magic, and it was understandable that the power of magic was somewhat unusual. As for the power of magic, there was no problem. She would say that it was at an immeasurably high level. Then she began filling out the report card and said that if you think about it, you need to somehow express its greatness. The examiner of the exam, Anon, gave the verdict that the estimated magic power was infinity. The number of corresponding elements was infinity. Anon shouted, "Infinity, since none of this can be measured. There are no limits, therefore infinite, it's okay." Sue happily raised her hands up and said that this is great work. Infinity is so cool. MC asked if it was good. Anon replied that everything was fine because she rated it that way. And she is good at judging people. They stood there in confusion. Then Sue hesitantly said that she did not doubt his abilities. Anon continued that if there were any other magic items that could measure the power of magic, then they would try to measure it again. The protagonist agreed with this. The results of his measurements were unclear. A system window appeared, which said, "Examiner Rude. Observer Enan. Aptitude test passed." The administrator led them outside and said that there would be an ability test. This is the more practical side of magic. She raised her index finger and added that, usually they do this in a special room, but since his magic is incomprehensible, they will do it outdoors, just for safety. Rudd noticed that she didn't trust him. Maybe she was still upset about him breaking 2 crystals. Then Enon took the cloth off the targets and said that she had prepared it for the test. 5 beautiful slime targets. She then raised her index finger again and added that the point of the test was to attack it with his magic. He could use any basic attack magic. He could choose any element. The protagonist asked if she wanted him to destroy it. She replied that she did, if he could. This was not the reaction he expected. He adjusted his bangs that were fluttering in the wind and remembered that he had seen something like this before. He looked at Anon and noted her confident gaze. One would think that she had a smile frozen on her face, but it was surprisingly easy to read her emotions. He then asked if it was easy to break. She adjusted her glasses and laughed and said that it was definitely so. It was not that easy to break, and that was because it was made of real golden slime. Golden slime is a rare small monster with a danger level of A. It has a golden body, and unusually for a slime monster that is resistant to physical attacks, there is no resistance to this one. Instead, the slime has overwhelming resistance to magic, and at the same time, it uses powerful magic attacks. It's a strange monster that you don't hear about often, since it's extremely rare. Anon pointed at the target and added that the golden targets are made of golden slimes. Even an S rank would have a hard time destroying it without special skill. The protagonist replied that he understood, so it's almost impossible to destroy with a basic magic attack. Enon adjusted her glasses and replied that it was absolutely indestructible. She was sure that these targets would avenge the magic crystal. This golden ball. The protagonist knew that she was still bothered by the fact that he broke those crystals. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly and replied, "But if it's indestructible, how will he pass the test?" She held her hand out to the side and said that this was a visual test to see if he could control his magic. It was completely normal for him not to be able to break it. After all, no one has ever managed to damage this. The surface is covered with a gel that reacts to magic, so a mark remains where you hit it. Rude thoughtfully scratched his chin and whispered, "I see. So this is a test of accuracy, not strength. If he just wants to pass the exam, it will be easy. He just needs to focus a small amount of magic." Enon, laughing, added that he will get high marks if he strives for more, but of course he will not be able to destroy it. MC realized that she harbored a grudge more than he thought. But he can't just tolerate when a mage's pride is hurt. He said that then he would attack seriously, but is she sure that everything will be fine? She resolutely answered that she is sure. This time, nothing will break. He noticed that she was nervous, and she waved her hands and shouted that she really is fine. The protagonist felt as if a few unflattering words had just been exchanged. Oh well, he'll believe her. This is a great chance to test how good he is, so he won't hold back. It's time to do it. He then extended his hand forward and the receptionist shouted for him to wait. He turned around and asked what was the matter. She asked where his staff was. He replied that he wasn't used to using it, and asked if it was really necessary here. She said that it wasn't. It wasn't important. He replied that he would just use his hands then. Enon stood there in confusion and asked if he always did this. The protagonist thought about what kind of magic he should use. Maybe something fire-based? Mei's strong point was the fireball. Perhaps a more accurate fire arrow would be more appropriate? It's time to reveal the fire living in him. Until now, he hadn't really studied offensive magic, because he had always been interested only in the kind that could be used to support the party. There were few magic spells that could be used for support, especially with fire magic. He has some knowledge, but he hasn't had a chance to use it. It's time to test it. Turn your fury into arrows that incinerate and pierce the wind. Now you need to direct the magic power, simultaneously adjusting the magic power to the element of fire, and changing its form. He changed the composition of some techniques to focus on power, ignoring accuracy. Technique adjustments complete. Next, deploy several magic compression techniques. Suddenly, Enon shouted sharply that she had a bad feeling. She tried to stop him, but it was too late. MC used a fire arrow and destroyed the target. The target shattered into small pieces. Enon was shocked and asked, was that basic magic, not advanced? He replied that it was a basic fire arrow. Enon congratulated him. She smiled through her tears, great restraint. He apologized. It was too much. The blow was unexpectedly powerful, although he did not count on it. Sue said, as expected of the owner. She knew it. He is great. The protagonist asked, will they charge him for this? A system window appeared, where it was said, Examinee Rude, Observer NN, Sorcery Mastery Infinite. Test passed. Enon called him back into the building and said that she will now report the final results of the registration test. Usually she tells you this right on the spot, but this time she received special instructions. She went to the door and knocked, then said that as she asked, she brought a potential newcomer with her. When the door opened, there was a girl standing at the table. Rude looked at her and thought that this is already interesting, especially the sword. There is something alien in it. Sabina thanked him for passing the registration test. She introduced herself as the guildmaster here. And he must be Rude. The protagonist answered, right. And Sue said that she is a slave. Savinia was surprised and said that he had an unusual slave, very interesting, but first she suggested to talk about the results of his tests. Anon showed her the report. She took the exam test in her hand and began to look at it, then said that to be honest, she had never seen such results before. MC thought that he had never heard of such a thing either. Anon described them as immeasurable and unknown possibilities. I wonder if she will reject it as an incomprehensible definition? It was even somehow exciting. After checking the exam sheet, Savinia said that, of course, he passed, and congratulations. Now he is a new member of this guild. Sue shouted that excellent work, the test was passed flawlessly. Anon congratulated him, to which the protagonist said thank you. He feels a little out of place, oh well. Savinia added that he will start with rank E. She knows that he is good at what he does, but this is the only thing she can do even with her power. The protagonist said that he didn't mind, and in fact he was new here. She said that she was glad that he understood everything. Anon thought that his abilities were already S rank, and asked who he really was. Rude thought that he was a former member of an S rank group. Is that how he should call himself? He was kicked out due to lack of strength. He didn't deserve it. He replied that he was just an adventurer and a former one at that. Savinia said that she would not pry into his past, but she had high hopes for him, looking forward to working together. Now that they were done, he could choose what to do. There was a task board at the entrance to the guild. The protagonist turned around and waved his hand, then said that he understood. But Savinia took out her sword and pointed it at him and continued. That first she would like to test him personally. He asked, is this a continuation of the test? She said no, that he passed it. Just a regular test, she thought. The game requires a reward, right? So if he wins, she will give him a reward. The protagonist asked for a reward? Then she continued that there was a brilliant group that was looking for a partner, an A rank. She could write a recommendation. He thought that made sense. He didn't know anyone in Roland, so he happily agreed and said that it was fine, he would take the test. He asked what the conditions were. They couldn't kill each other, right? Savinia said no, and she suggested that they settle it with one lunge. She would attack him with a sword. He would win if he blocked the attack, and she would win if he was hurt. The MC agreed. Then he asked that she was at a disadvantage. Savinia told him not to worry, she would not let him get bored. She said that they would start in this room and asked Anand to bring out the child. To which Sue replied that she would watch this test. She would not leave her master. Savinia was surprised and asked that they did not want her to get hurt. The protagonist used a barrier. Savinia said that she admitted that his magic level was off the charts. But magic wasn't the only way to survive as an adventurer. He asked what she meant. She asked how about that and used an anti-magic barrier. A barrier that prevented magic and suppressed spells, also known as a mage killer. She asked him how he would fight without his magic. She was quite curious. He asked if she hadn't said that she would attack him with just a sword. She said that she only uses it. Doesn't he see? She wants him to show her all his power. You never know what will happen. That's the point of adventures. She threw blades at him, which landed around him. They had colored threads on them, an improvised trap, designed to restrict his movements. She wants him to go straight ahead. This is too intricate. And she began the attack and shouted at him not to dare die. A combination of fire and wind magic. He asked if she was seriously trying to kill him. Thanks to her, it will be much easier for him now, because she untied his hands. He will create countermeasures like her. He used a barrier. She asked, did he adapt in a second? Indeed, very interesting, then shouted, how did he like that? And launched an attack on him. He thought a clever mechanism and said that she was too well prepared. Then he thought, just like that big guy. She stood there looking at the protagonist, sweat running down her face, licking her lips, and said she wanted to see more. He thought, what's with that crazy look? Is she a pervert? He said he'll grant her wish and thought he felt the wind element in the blade, and accordingly, the earth element. Savinia thought she felt him adapting very quickly. Something strange seemed to be happening. He thought they had a winner. She asked him to show her again how he could adapt to her so quickly, just a little more, and she would finish. He shouted that he wouldn't let her finish. She launched an attack. The protagonist used magic and broke her blade with it. She stood there and didn't understand. The protagonist couldn't put them in danger. She said that after all that magic, she could hardly breathe. He said he was used to using a lot of magic. He managed to block the attack, so he won, right? She noted that she was completely defeated and never thought that it was possible to break a mithril weapon. The protagonist replied that it was an accident. She went on and said she liked him. He was a very funny guy. She had lost her old zest. Wished that it would always be like this. He thought, what does an adaptation fetish even mean? A fetish for magic or an adaptation fetish? Anand said that they all have an adaptation addiction, as does their guildmaster. He thought that this guild was full of weirdos. Savinia said that she hasn't seen a good adaptation in a long time. It was funny, and suggested that next time they should be more serious. The MC replied that he doesn't want to deal with the demonic sword. She asked if he knows about it. She thought she had control over it, but it seems she doesn't have enough experience. The protagonist replied that he has heard about it often. They say that if an inexperienced person holds a demonic sword in his hand, his consciousness will be enslaved by the power of the sword. Then the fact that she can handle it without problems proved that she has complete control over it. She added that this time the tests were really over. She asked Anand to give him a guild medal. She brought it on a tray and said that here is his Roland Adventurer certificate. A system window appeared where it said overall results, Examinee Rude, Examiner Anand, estimated magic power, infinity, number of corresponding elements, infinity, magic abilities, infinity, adventurer registration test passed, adventurer rank E. The word of the guildmaster, he definitely has incredible abilities. He did the right thing. He became an adventurer again, but this time on his own. Finally, he feels like a person in the true sense of the word. And he said that from now on his adventures begin. Sue said that she would follow him anywhere. After some time, they are standing on the stairs. Savinia said that the squad leader should arrive any minute. She will give him an official recommendation and give him the opportunity to meet in person. The protagonist replied that he understood. He decided to see if there was any work for him. He would start with an E rank. Anand said that there were several assignments for him. He looked at the list and, puzzled, said collecting medicinal herbs. Anand said that he would be able to get more assignments if he joined an A rank squad. She understands that this is too easy, but for now, he will have to be patient. He said that he is grateful that at least there is some. And then someone breaks into the building. It was the squad leader. Rude thought that it seemed to him that their eyes met. She walked up to MC point blank and asked if it was him. He replied yes. She said that she knew it. It was clear from the first glance that he had an unusual aura. Her armor is hard and cold. Sue calmly shouted asking who she is. Savinia replied that it was Lily Ruru, the leader of their A-rank squad, the Brave Boar's Tusk. Rude said, A-rank squad. Savinia replied that it was the one she wrote the recommendation for. Lily Ruru said that she thought the meeting would be tomorrow. She couldn't wait. She heard everything from Inan. Inan asked from her in confusion. Savinia said that it might not be from her. Lily Ruru asked the protagonist that he really defeated the guildmaster who was in a state of adaptation madness and overcame the overwhelming advantage in an instant. How did he manage to get past the mage killer? The protagonist thought that there were too many questions. Sue said that the master was already tired. Lily Ruru was excited and said that the decision was made on behalf of their entire squad. They, the brave boar's tusk, will accept him with open arms. He thought that she came all this way just for this? A new squad, a new place for him. His partner, a martial artist, May the sorceress, Shin the saint, and Puff, who is said to have replaced him. They have probably already advanced further. Definitely not his place. The protagonist felt ill, he fainted. When he woke up, Anon said that this was the common room of the guild. Savinia said that he woke up. The protagonist knelt down and bowed in front of Lily Ruru and asked for forgiveness. Lily Ruru stood with her hand on her side and said, "Enough." The protagonist, sitting on the floor, looked at her and asked, "Is that true?" He thought she would be furious. She looked so noble. They were all sitting at the table. Sue was lying on the owner's lap. Lily Ruru said that she thought he was somehow painfully bearing the word squad, and asked if that was the reason. She really is an A-rank leader, not only externally but also internally. It would be impolite for him to remain silent. Then the protagonist said that he was sure that they had already heard that he was an adventurer in high air. Lily Ruru asked furiously, that he was kicked out? No way. Refuse such a diamond. She asked to show her the idiots who did this. Inan asked to calm down, adding that she had never seen a mage of Mr. Rude's level in high air, a strange evaluation system, and it would be impossible to find a replacement. Grandmaster said that she did not understand anything either. Either the party members were so good that they did not need his help, or they were simply incompetent. Sue grabbed Lily Ruru's hands and said that she was absolutely right. The owner was the best mage, to which she agreed with her. No one blamed him, rather they were angry at Tron and the others for kicking him out. Inan asked that he was abandoned by friends he trusted. That's what probably torments him. Lily Ruru noticed that he felt bad for some reason when he heard about the squad. The protagonist replied that it seemed like that. Squad phobia, no other way. Sue said that she felt sorry for him. The protagonist thought, squad phobia. He didn't think that such a thing was possible and didn't understand. He wanted to help Sue with her problems, but he didn't suspect that he was also very traumatized. Sue stroked the protagonist's head. He thought that he didn't even know which of them was the boss. The squad leader said that she understood him and would come by later, and she suggested that they talk about joining the squad next time. Rude and Sue sat in bewilderment. They asked the question, what? Rude sat on the couch and thought, if they have a squad, A rank, then they need more talented people than him. There is no need to choose him, who is not all right in the head. Suddenly, Lily Ruru pointed her fingers at him and said, let's do without it. He is the one she needs, and for him to be more confident, he deserves an A rank or more. She blushed, removed her finger and laid her head on her shoulder. She said that, besides, he was the first one to splash her with this crap, and she will have to take responsibility. Then they grabbed each other's hands, and she continued, in any case, she was going to invite him to their party. He was kicked out, but he was able to start from scratch, and from now on, he decided to live the way he wants. Meanwhile, Tron arrives in the Kingdom of High Air, in the capital of Tira. It is the most prosperous metropolis and the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild. Tran came to the king, knelt down. Then the king said that Golden Rose was demoted to B rank. Tran asked, what? Then thought that they were S rank. Not even A, so why? Tron furiously asked, why B rank? The guards threw him to the floor and held his head between two bayonets and said that he was a fool. He is sitting in front of the king after all. He said, damn it. At that time, Sue, Lily, and Rude returned home. Sue happily shouted that she was home, and Lily apologized for disturbing her. The protagonist told Sue to wash her hands properly. Sue said okay. Lily asked the protagonist how he was acting like a father. She was surprised that there was even water here. It was a moving castle. Rude thought something like that. The carriage, which had undergone a series of magical transformations during the journey from high air, had become a home away from home, a place to relax. He hid it outside the city, but it was still very conspicuous. He had heard rumors about it starting to spread, and it could attract unwanted attention. Rude thought that maybe he had reinforced the walls too much against bandits and monsters. He would try to cast a magical disguise later. They all sat on the sofa and sat at the table. However, he met different people. Before, he lived like a recluse and devoted all his time to studying magic. It was like a breath of fresh air. Then Rude asked, well? And turned to Sue, and here is today's catch. She was very happy and clapped her hands, then said, enjoy your meal. Lily sat and looked at her with bewilderment. Then she asked what this is, what they feed her. MC answered that this is wild boar meat, this is swordfish fillet, this is the liquid from the body of a forest worm. Lily Rue thoughtfully brought her hand to her mouth and wondered. Meat? Fillet? Liquid? Sue grabbed her cheeks and was very happy and said that it was very tasty. Lily asked, is this some kind of medicine? The protagonist asked, do they have anything like that in Roland? They are called supplements. This is real food. He thought they were made for efficient muscle growth. He always took it for granted, but it was a unique culture in high air where the emphasis was on the physical body. Come to think of it, his teammates didn't take it very well either. Everyone told him it was terrible and asked him to keep it away from them. Lily Rue picked up one of the capsules and began to examine it, then said that she had never seen anything like it before. Then she asked if it was really meat. Then the protagonist also picked up one of the capsules and looked at it. Then he said that he made this supplement by extracting energy from boa constrictor meat using magic. Lily wondered if such a thing was really possible, to which he told her that it was easy if you use the reaction between bioenergy and magic. You can efficiently extract the energy you need and compress it. Then you don't have to worry about the meat spoiling, so it's very convenient for long dungeon crawls. She asked indignantly, does he think it's easy? And is it really possible to do this with magic? He himself doesn't fully understand how it works. He answered her hesitantly, he is kind of self-taught, and she should just trust him. Since she is here, why shouldn't she try? She looked at him silently. At this time, Sue was enjoying her food. Then Lily agreed and added that it did not seem dangerous. She closed her eyes and brought the capsules to her mouth. She was surprised and said that it was very tasty. MC smiled and asked, was it really? Now he realized that it was perfectly seasoned. Then he took the capsule in his hand and thought that he would eat more to restore his magic. She said that she really can't stop. But it is not enough. He was surprised. Not enough? To which she said that it is very tasty and she is sure it is filling. But chewing is also an important part of the meal. She slammed her hand on the table and told him to look at Sue. She was apparently a beast man, so it is better to feed her solid meat. It's not just about nutrition and taste, it also strengthens the jaws. Does he understand that? Then she threw another capsule into her mouth. Sue sat and looked at the owner, while he sat and thought that it did not sound very convincing. Meanwhile, night fell outside. They lit the fireplace, and Sue, yawning, said that she was starting to feel sleepy. The main character hugged her and said that they would go to bed early today. Well, what did she say? Okay. Lily asked the same question again. Are you sure he is not her father? After dinner, he bathes her, tells her about magic and puts her to bed. Since they met, this has become his evening routine. He concluded that she was tired just after a walk around the city because she was still afraid of strangers' looks. Sue offered the owner to take a bath together. He agreed and said that he would bathe her. He told Lily to make herself at home. She said she understood and continued eating. Then she jumped up and screamed in surprise, "Are they both going there?" He looked at Sue and said yes. Lily said sheepishly, that was a bad idea, a boy and a girl their age. She screamed, they will undress there, right? He confirmed it and added that they always bathe together, right? He petted Sue's head, and she confirmed this and added that she liked it when her master petted her. Lily pushed them apart and screamed, no way, they should do it separately. Sue asked why they couldn't bathe together. Lily answered that there were many reasons, and it was just wrong. Then Sue suggested that they all go together. The protagonist and Lily were surprised at the same time. What? She happily said that then they wouldn't be alone. The protagonist screamed that it was a bad idea. He understood that unlike Sue, who was still a child, Lily was a beautiful maiden, which was very dangerous. He noticed that Lily was standing there all red as a tomato. Then she shouted that she didn't mind. She was just thinking about taking a bath too. The protagonist said that she had a crimson face. If she didn't want to, there was no need to force herself. She replied that she wasn't forcing her. All this was for the sake of winning him over. Rude was perplexed. Winning? Why did Lily Rue even come to his house? She answered him that, of course, she wanted them to be in the same squad. If they were going to be friends, it would be better to get to know each other better, right? She pointed her finger at him and added that she would definitely get him. She even grabbed some things for the overnight stay and decided to stay. After a while, the protagonist entered the bath and looked in shock at the naked guest, who put the clothes she had just taken off to her chest. He thought it was a really unexpected turn of events.